Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Show. I'm Mark, you're Marcus, and we are going to get to watch a lot more Premier League teams in the Champions League knockout stage. Yeah. I think that's where we got to start. Well, no, we won't start there. We'll just kind of Champions League group stage has come to an end. A lot went on, but
it felt kind of quick, didn't it?
It did. It felt very quick, and maybe not so much drama, but the drama really starts in the knockout rounds anyway.
Certainly, yeah.
But, you know, just as the final matches were taking place on Tuesday and Wednesday, what were you thinking? Was anything going through your head?
No.
Nothing?
Well, during this week's games, most of the just about everything was set, not in terms of first and second, but I think we had a good sense of who was going through by the end of maybe game day 5.
Yeah.
And I think most of the drama that, you know, where we're really looking, is this team going to get through, especially with the English teams who we're going to get into, Man United, Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham, they were all through. PSG was through. You know, we didn't know where they were going to be within those groups, but we kind of knew by the end of 4 or 5 rounds that these teams are going through and these teams aren't. So, yeah, it was a bit anticlimactic, I would say.
Well, and we'll get to our biggest surprises later, but another surprise, and I don't want to say it's the biggest surprise because that would mean that it's completely out of left field, but I think a surprise was Roma winning their group, and that's something that they weren't able to clinch until the final day, and there was a chance that they could be eliminated on the final day as well. So that was one group that was up in the air.
And on game day 6, I was thinking, which game am I going to watch? They were all kicking off at the same time, 2:45 Eastern time, and yeah, I went with Chelsea, Atletico Madrid because
it's a good one.
You know, that group I think was there was the most to play for in that group, and that was a great matchup, or at least it should have been.
But yeah, great stuff throughout the group stage. But months ago, going into the tournament, we talked about the 5 Premier League clubs and which club had the best chance of winning Champions League as a whole. And I don't think we expected all 5 to be advancing. I mean, maybe we even thought that they all 5 could, but when it actually happens, that's a surprise as well. And it's the first time in Champions League history that 5 clubs from the same country have all advanced to the knockout stages. 4 of them won their group, though the only one that didn't was Chelsea, who we mentioned finished second to Roma. But, I mean, you look at Tottenham, they were in a group with Real Madrid and Dortmund, and Dortmund seemed to underperform, but Tottenham just dominated almost. They 5 wins and 1 draw. Harry Kane just putting the world on his shoulders.
Yeah, when the draw happened back in was it late August, early September, I looked at it and I said, boy, Manchester United, they lucked out. Liverpool, they lucked out. Manchester City, they were kind of one of the higher seeded teams, so we knew they were going to get a good draw. Tottenham, I thought, got a terrible draw.
Yeah.
Chelsea, I had a feeling would manage to get through. I didn't think it would come
a tough draw too.
I didn't think it would come at Atletico Madrid's expense.
Yeah.
I thought Roma would be the one to miss out in that group. But as for the English clubs, I think with all of them except for Tottenham, it kind of played out as we expected. I didn't expect Liverpool to score so many goals. I think they had 23, but 14 of them came in 2 games.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was 13 came in 2 games.
Right.
So they were very explosive. Didn't see that coming. Manchester City, I knew they would do very well. They have a bit of style and steel to them. They've been through this Champions League, through these group stages for so many years now. They know what to do in this position. Manchester United with Jose Mourinho.
They got a shot.
Yeah, between that and the draw, I had a feeling they were gonna fare well. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking surprises, Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, just hats off to Tottenham. I feel like advancing out of that group in the fashion that they did it is almost, and they won't as you can see, all the teams up there. But Tottenham fans will want more, but I think when you look at it in a vacuum, it's like, how much more can you really expect out of Tottenham? You know, like just advancing out of that group was a huge accomplishment in its own.
Right, but that has actually come at great expense to Tottenham because they've been faltering in the Premier League. I think in their last 6 games, they might have won 1 and drawn 1 or something like that. They really haven't been playing well since they beat Real Madrid, and it was almost like Tottenham and their fans and the club were celebrating a bit too hard, beating a shorthanded Real Madrid at Wembley Stadium.
Well, let me ask you this. Manchester City is obviously in the knockout rounds, and they're very comfortably in first in the Premier League. And since you look and you see 5 Premier League clubs in the knockout rounds of the Champions League, and Manchester City still handling business so easily domestically, do you maybe, like, are they the favorite with PSG and with Bayern Munich and Barcelona and Real Madrid? Are they the favorite to win the tournament as we enter the knockout stages of Champions League?
Not the favorite, but they are among the favorites.
Okay.
Yes. I wouldn't put them at the top up there with Real Madrid, Barcelona.
Wouldn't.
No, only because those teams have won it recently. Manchester City hasn't. But among these English teams, certainly the favorite.
Yeah.
Second favorite, I would say Chelsea.
Okay.
Third favorite, Manchester United. Fourth, Liverpool.
So not Tottenham.
Let me flip Liverpool and Manchester United.
Okay.
Third, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Fourth,
Man
Manchester United. 5, Tottenham. If we're
Okay.
talking about the teams with the best chances to win the Champions League out of England.
Yeah. Okay, well, outside of England, there were other surprises. We both picked one. Mine was kind of on the other end because this team is now eliminated, but Benfica records 0 points in the group stage. They're currently in third in the Portugal League, Primeira Liga. They were in a group with Man United, FC Basel, and CSKA Moscow. You think you can get a point somewhere in those matches. I think it's a huge letdown for them, a huge letdown for Portugal. Just, I don't know what happened, but they just, because they're playing well domestically, well enough domestically.
Well, for Benfica, being third in Portugal's Primeira Liga is not good.
No.
It's really a 3-horse race in that league, and if they're third, they're the third horse. I do want to share a story.
Okay.
I had the pleasure of taking an Uber recently with a guy who pulls up in a car that is decked out in FC Porto. So, of course, we start talking.
Yeah.
And, we spent most of the time laughing at Benfica about, Porto being a big major rival of Benfica.
Yeah.
About how poorly they're doing in the Premier League.
Right.
I guess it's a major joke among fans of Portuguese soccer.
Poor Benfica.
And it's got to be a sore subject among Benfica and their 30 to 40 million fans worldwide.
Yeah.
I look at this group, Basel, Moscow. I mean, I can understand
losing both to United.
To United. And even that was in somewhat comical circumstances where the goalkeeper catches the ball and he's back behind the goal line, and that's a loss. So this Champions League campaign for Benfica, it's going to go down in their Hall of Shame if they have one, somewhere in the basement of their stadium in Lisbon.
They have one now, that's for sure. Your surprise?
Well, I had two. The first was Besiktas winning their group.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming. I think that's Group G.
Yeah, the group was kind of up for grabs when we were talking about it.
Right, but it had Red Bull Leipzig, Monaco,
and
Porto. I thought those 3 teams would be. I thought they would actually.
Like those would be the ones.
The 2 out of those 3 would go through. Yeah. Turns out those 3 all flopped in the Champions League, and Besiktas, credit to them. They've done really well, and a player, Cenk Tosun, who's a Turkish striker, he set the group on fire. But my real surprise was PSG. I did not see them being as good as they were, and I would have spent the whole show talking about them today if they didn't lose to Bayern Munich in the group finale. Yeah. Saw a little bit of that game. Maybe PSG wasn't They knew they couldn't lose by 20-something goals. That was the only way Bayern Munich were going to beat them, beat them for the group. So they had their foot off the gas, but they were just really the first 5 games, 5 wins, 24 goals scored, 1 conceded. I talked about them being scary good a couple months ago, and they proved me right.
Yeah. We asked about the favorites. I think PSG's got to be on everybody's radar, and I'd take them as favorites pretty much until they reach a semifinal, regardless of who they're drawn against.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that does it for Champions League. The draw is on Monday, very early. I'm kind of surprised that the draw wasn't today. I feel like it's always that.
It's usually Friday.
Yeah, but draw is Monday. We'll have to wait through the weekend to see what all the matchups will be. But, the rules there, just real quick, is you can't face a club from your own country, and you can't face a club that was within your group. So only so many matchups available.
Yeah.
But we won't get into that because we got some bigger news. Sunil Gulati, U.S. soccer president, has decided not to run for re-election in 2018 as president of U.S. soccer. This was met pretty positively, I think, throughout the U.S. among just U.S. soccer fans. But it's sort of, even though the U.S. had failed to qualify for the World Cup, and there was a lot of criticism, it was still Gulati's election to lose. And I think a lot of people really kind of expected him to be president still, just because he's so well connected and ingrained in U.S. soccer. Now it really opens it up. And there are a lot of candidates coming up from everywhere, from Landon Donovan to Hope Solo to Eric Winalda to Kathy Carter is a name that keeps popping up everywhere, who I'd never heard before, 2 days ago. So what's your initial reaction to Gulati deciding to step down, I guess, more or less, or not rerun? And where do you think U.S. soccer goes from here?
Well, 2 things. First, I think, it was Gulati's election to lose, and I think he's sort of bowing to public pressure.
Yeah.
After the U.S. men failed to qualify, and there have been other kind of PR mishaps along the way, but this was really it was an inflection point where everybody said something had to change. Now, I've gone on record and on this show saying how a lot of people, they criticize Gulati or they criticize U.S. soccer, but they're not really hammering home the real problem, which is these guys on the field really failed. And what does Gulati, what's his role in that? I would say it's minimal. So I had a feeling he was a bit of a lightning rod for every criticism that anybody has about U.S. soccer falls on him. That's the first thing. Second thing, he's got bigger fish to fry, and he has 3 jobs. U.S. soccer is an unpaid position.
Right. He's got
presidency. He's got 3 jobs that are paying
and he's not
him.
really going anywhere. He's still going to be very much around in U.S. soccer.
He's got 4 jobs that pay him a lot more. 1, lecturer at Columbia University. 2, he's on the CONCACAF Executive Council or whatever that's called. 3, he's on the FIFA Council, which pays him around $300,000 a year, and he's growing in power every year within FIFA. And 4, he's the president. He's the chairman of the bid to secure the 2026 World Cup for the United States,
something that's looking
Canada,
very good.
and Mexico. Now, after the successful World Cup of 1994, the then chairperson Alan Rothenberg received a $7 million bonus for pulling it off successfully. So let's, here we are. 2026 will be, 30 years later or something like that. 30 years later after that. I mean, Gulati's looking at probably a $15 million bonus thereabouts. So he's got other things, and I think, even he said it's time for someone else, for a new face to do the job. I still don't know what the job does or how they can drive these changes that people talk about, but I guess it's good to have people talking about it and what needs to happen versus status quo.
It's almost like the different candidates have different mindsets for what their job will be.
Yeah.
When you hear Eric Winalda talk about the job, all he talks about is player development and youth level development, and then that, paying dividends at the senior level. And it's nothing about maybe marketing or, financial aspects of U.S. soccer, whereas Kathy Carter is president of Soccer United Marketing, which is an MLS position. So she's like kind of straight from the Sunil Gulati side of things, I guess you'd say. And it's almost like I don't think the president can just pick and choose whatever they want to do, but it's like when they get into office, it's where they set their priorities, and that's where their job sort of develops. But I will say this about Gulati, and you said he's got a lot of other things going on, so it's kind of like, what does he need all this crazy pressure and criticism for if he's needs to be focusing on these jobs that are going to potentially pay him millions of dollars?
Right.
But I will say that if he had run, he had a very good chance of winning.
Yeah.
And he knows that as well as anybody. And he still made the decision not to run and not be the president because while he doesn't want the criticism, I think he also did at the end of the day genuinely want what's best for U.S. soccer.
Yeah.
And he knows that if the president of U.S. soccer is being criticized by the entire public of the nation, that's not good for U.S. soccer.
Yeah.
So to step down, I think, is a good move.
And I think for him, when he first became U.S. soccer president in 2006, I think his personal ambition was always to get into FIFA and to really lift the profile.
And he's done that.
And he's done that. So 12 years, job well done, some bumps in the road, and now it's time for someone else.
Do you have a favorite candidate?
No.
Nothing?
No.
My funniest candidate is Hope Solo, who is officially a candidate. We checked on that right before we started.
Hope Solo is in the race to be president of the U.S. Soccer Federation.
The last I heard about Hope Solo was just a series of events, and everybody heard them, where she allegedly beat like her teenage nephew. She was suspended from U.S. soccer, kind of brushed aside in shame almost, despite having so much on-field success. And, you kind of hear rumors that, she wasn't exactly the most popular teammate on the team. And it's just kind of an odd person to see pop up, try and run for president, because you would imagine that maybe she doesn't have the most friends like within U.S. soccer and the people that you need to know.
Hope Solo's had some bad press over the years, but what she's done in her career outweighs that press. She is the greatest goalkeeper in the history of women's soccer.
Yeah.
Or you can even say soccer, based on what she's achieved and what she's won. And that takes a certain amount of, personal discipline and all the good traits you want in a leader. When I woke up today, I did not expect to see Hope Solo as running for president of U.S. soccer.
Right.
But I read her manifesto, platform, and I liked where her head was at on it. I guess to sum it up, she was saying that for so long, as long as she's been in the system, and we could say that's for 20 plus years, cash rules everything around U.S. soccer.
Yeah.
Chris?
So it's close.
Yeah, what she was saying was that profit was the driver behind youth soccer and youth development, and profit was the driver behind paying the U.S. women less or inequitably compared to the U.S. men. Profit is the driver behind having maybe the women play in certain stadiums where the turf fields are tearing up and players are being injured and they're at risk. Profit is behind no promotion and relegation in MLS. Profit, she really pointed out how the role that pushing for profitable activities is coming at the expense of developing players. And she talked about her own experience of not being able to pay, her family not being able to pay for the elite training that most of the best players need in order to reach their potential and maximize their careers. Hope Solo comes from a poor background, and she's one of very few players in the United States to come out of that background and raise to the level of international superstar. So I think those points they're very important, and I don't think they're going to get her elected because she's bringing that message to a group of people for whom that profit and that, that capitalistic
Yeah, they
motive,
don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, well, that's their structure. So she's coming in to say, I'm going to blow this whole thing up, or not blow it up, but I really want to change that dynamic.
She's not the only one that's saying that, and that's why
No.
I think that that changed. I think that direction, unfortunately, because I think that is the direction that U.S. soccer should go. I don't think that's the direction it is going to go because
There's $150 million in the bank.
right, and it's. I mean, you kind of just said it that the focus needs to be on player development, but to play youth soccer and to get the elite training and to be at an elite level, it's difficult if you don't have the income to sort of pay for that.
Yeah.
And I think in other sports in the United States, there are opportunities made for young athletes that aren't able to pay certain amounts, and they are put into programs or AAU and whatever that takes care of a lot of those expenses and gets the young players this great training and experience, and that encourages a younger player to continue playing because they keep getting better and better and better. Whereas with soccer, it's like, well, you could maybe join this team, but you have to pay all this money and you can't afford it, and we're going to move on to the kid that can. I don't know. We're getting into a whole different thing here, but
Yeah, even before you get to that, it's where are there fields for the kids to play?
Right.
Where do you play the game? If there are no fields in certain parts of the country, then the kids don't play.
Right.
Period. So,
well,
on.
the election is in February 2018. The deadline, we'll know every candidate on December 12th because that's the deadline to have the official candidates. And then the voting process, it's kind of murky. I don't know exactly who gets the votes because there's different, votes are weighted differently depending on where they're coming from. But
no, we have 2 months to figure it out.
yeah, I guess so. But it'll, all eyes will be on that in February. But the League of U.S. Soccer, MLS, they got their cup final on Saturday.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of weird. The president of U.S. Soccer resigns, and then the weekend the domestic cup is taking place.
Well, he didn't resign.
Or not resign. He announced he's not.
Yeah.
Announced the end of his tenure.
Yeah.
But we have a rematch from 2016. Seattle Sounders versus Toronto FC. Toronto FC, of course, broke the MLS record for points in a single season. Now looking to really put the stamp down as, I guess, the greatest club team in American soccer history if they can win the cup final.
Yeah, maybe for a single season.
Right,
they
single
would be the
season.
most successful season. They'd be the first team to win 3 major trophies. They already have the Canadian Championship. They have the Supporter Shield, MLS Supporter Shield. And MLS Cup is the big one. So everything is really tilted in their favor. I wouldn't call them the heavy favorites. I would call them favorites.
Yeah.
God help us if the game is
Back to
anything
PKs.
like last year.
Yeah,
I remember
it's
watching
unfortunate.
it, and woof, it was a goalless draw. There was that one save that I
Right.
believe Stephen Fry made, but yeah, the game itself, 120 minutes, 0-0. Some, not all 0-0s are created equally, but last year I remember the game just wasn't that exciting, and when it was over, I said, "Great, finally."
Yeah.
I think this year will be a lot better, only because there's this familiarity level between the teams. They were both, more or less, both groups are still intact from last year. There are some changes as to who's on the field, who's not on the field. There could be snow, weather will be an issue. It's cold in Toronto. I heard the field is still frozen right now. Here we are, maybe 30 hours before kickoff. So,
Right.
I'll be watching that just to see how the conditions shape up. But it'll be cold, it'll be loud, and I think things are tilted in Toronto's favor.
I think so too. I mean, Seattle won 5-4 on PKs last year. Obviously, when it goes to PKs, it's up in the air. But Toronto defeated Seattle 1-0 in their only meeting this year.
That was in Seattle.
They appear to just be the dominant side and have the most talent. And I think that they could. But the thing is, it being a final, it happened last year, like we were saying, that teams can maybe go into the whole mode of play not to lose, don't make a mistake, slow the game way down, and maybe not take certain chances that you would when you're just in a regular season match or you need to get goals. So I'm hoping for an early goal because I think that opens the whole game up, and then we've got a fun game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all the big U.S. stars are playing. Clint Dempsey's playing. Michael Bradley.
Josie
Altidore. So that's exciting, although I'm not sure how excited people are about those players anymore. But they can still play some soccer.
Yeah, I mean, these guys represent the generation of U.S. players who came home. And I'm glad that these players, who are all still national team players as of the end of 2017, I'm glad they are in the championship game because it's showing that they're still the best players playing domestically, and that's what you want to see. It's not like they came home, got a big paycheck, and their teams are lousy. They are playing key roles on good teams, and that's what they're being paid well to do.
Right. Well, yeah, so Saturday at 4 o'clock in Toronto. Do you have a prediction?
Toronto.
Yeah.
2 goals. Seattle, 1 goal.
All right. I agree. 2-1, Toronto.
It's very courageous of you.
No, it's not. But I would say Toronto scores both in the second half. So that's my courageous prediction.
All right. Seattle goes up 1.
Right. And it's a courageous, amazing comeback for the great people of Canada.
All right.
But, we like the MLS here, but we're easy to admit that it's not the biggest match of the weekend. That belongs to Manchester and Manchester City versus Manchester United. 1-2 in the Premier League. It really doesn't get any bigger as far as soccer goes. I don't care. I mean, this is up there with just the greatest games that happen every year. I'm excited. I'll be watching. 11:30 a.m. on Sunday. What are you most excited about with this matchup?
To see if anybody can stop Manchester City. Manchester City, I didn't look at the table, but they've got a healthy lead at the over Man United, who's in second at, it's got to be,
I think it's almost 10
8,
points.
9 points.
Oh, here we go. We got
like
it.
that.
Yeah, we got it. 8.
Oh, perfect. 8 points. So, yeah, if Manchester United wins, then perhaps we'll have a title race this year. If Manchester City wins,
they become pretty clear.
Yeah, they are. Boy, I don't want to say forget about it, but yeah, if it's really for the sake of the rest of the teams in the league, is just to keep Manchester City within touching distance, and a lot's going to happen over the Christmas New Year's period. But this is the game that really. I heard it being billed as the richest game ever, and I didn't read the articles about it, but could be in terms of transfer fees, could be in terms of wages, could be in terms of what the clubs are valued. They're saying this year is the money game. So me and 500 million others will be watching. This
is the kind of match where because you watch so much soccer and you kind of get bored with the walkout by each team, the little kids, and like the whole ceremony that takes place before every match. And you just kind of like try to make sure you don't start viewing until right when the match is going to start. This is the one where I think I'm going to be sitting down on my couch 5 minutes before coverage starts, and I'll watch all hour of that, and then I'll watch the match. I'm very excited, just because the atmosphere is going to be unreal.
It will.
And I don't know what ticket prices are, but I'm sure they're astronomical. I mean, how often have they met when they're 1-2 in the Premier League and as well as this late in the season in December, we should have looked into that. But
yeah,
it's not like it happens all the time. It's it's a very competitive league.
No, this will be the most important Manchester derby of probably in the last 4 years thereabouts. It's huge.
Yeah, it's also like it doesn't matter if you're following the Premier League or if you know much about Man City or Man United. You just gotta watch. It doesn't this is if you are trying to get into soccer, this is the match to watch.
Not the next one.
Well, not the next one. We put this one in here too. Juventus versus Inter Milan.
It's a great game to watch.
It's a fantastic game. Kind of when you put it up against the Manchester Derby, not as great, but it's 1 versus 3 in Serie A, and Juventus, if they win, they take over first place. It's at Juventus Stadium, and Juventus had a slow start to their Serie A campaign, and now they've become Juventus again and are storming back. Mm-hmm. Taking care of business every weekend. I expect them to take care of business again and defeat Inter. And if Napoli were to draw or lose, then they would take over sole possession of first place in Serie A. Kind of right where they belong and where everybody expects them to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, Juventus back rolling, and Inter's been playing well, but not as well as Juventus lately, as like in the last month. I don't think anybody's playing as well as they've been playing.
Yeah, I mean, this game, every year, this is the Derby della Madonna, I think is what it is. Juve-Inter is always a big game. And this year, as part of the Make Syria Great Again project, we need great teams in Milan. And AC Milan, for all the money they say they have, we don't know if they actually have it. AC Milan, they're struggling, and they're kind of lost up creek without a paddle.
The AC Milan is like millions of dollars in debt, I'm hearing.
Yeah, Inter Milan. It looks like they're back on their feet. And
yes, absolutely.
And that's great, because this is a team that 7 years ago won the Champions League. I think they won 2 or 3 straight Serie A titles prior to that. Yeah. Inter's it's a big club. It's a great club, and the last 4 years without them being in the mix have been really a shame for Serie A and Italian soccer as a whole. So, we want a grande Inter, and Juventus needs rivals, and this is a game that it'll show us whether we should be paying more attention to Serie A now and going forward.
I'll say it this week, as I do almost every week, that you should be paying more attention to Serie A. And the league does continue to get better and better. AC Milan is a pretty big disappointment.
Yeah.
I think not just for themselves, but for the league as a whole. But aside from that, everyone else seems to be sort of doing their part. Napoli was unable to advance in Champions League. But
are they still...
They're second in Serie A, and it's had some bad luck. But Juventus, Inter, another must-watch. So you got your Saturday game, you got your Sunday game. You can roll Juventus Inter right into the MLS Cup, and then you're all set. You don't even need to make any plans Saturday.
MLS Cup starts at 4. This one, Inter won't be.
Is it? I think coverage starts at 4, so it might not actually start until. But
the old switcheroo.
They'll get you. But okay, we did a good job timing-wise this week. We typically run longer than we want to.
Yeah.
But do you have a final word?
No.
I got one.
Okay.
Cristiano Ronaldo, Ballon d'Or winner for the 5th time, over Messi. Ho hum, big deal. Not exactly a surprise. Just kind of thought we should mention it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, did you hear what he said after what he said to France Football, which awards the Ballon d'Or?
What did he say?
He said, "I am the greatest and most complete player in history," and some other stuff. Yeah.
Well, good for him. He kind of is.
Bravo, Ronaldo.
Good for him. We'll see if he can win it again next year.
And he might.
He very well might.
They've been talking about whether this is the last year of the Messi-Ronaldo dominance. No, it's not. We're probably 2 years away from that.
Real quick, I looked this up real quick, that Italian soccer team AC Milan is in exclusive talks with a single party for the refinancing of 308 million euros of the club's debt. That's a lot. They have, I believe, a Chinese owner
who might not
have all the money
that they say they do. Yeah.
Yeah, what can you do? We'll see how that works out. But thanks for joining us this week. We'll keep you posted on AC Milan's debt and everything else in the world of soccer next week and the following week and for the rest of the time. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.